Live from downtown Vancouver at the Vancouver Film School campus, it's time for EP Live. Hello, my friends. Welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool. We've got a packed show. I want to get right to it. This rundown, which we're going to start off with today, is dedicated to Justin A., who says, so lucky to have Victor Lucas review these classics. I think he's talking about the 16-bit superhero games. Man, I have a lot of fun with those. Thank you, Justin A. This rundown is all yours, and let's get started. One of gaming's biggest franchises is finally resurfacing. After years of rumors, 2K has officially announced that the all-new BioShock game is in development. They haven't revealed a title or any footage, but their press release says that the new game will maintain the franchise's emphasis on powerful narrative and iconic first-person shooter gameplay. We also know that it's the first big project being made at Cloud Chamber, a new development studio 2K has set up in Montreal. Global studio head Kelley Gilmore says they've set up Cloud Chamber to create yet-to-be discovered worlds, so it's unclear if that means the new BioShock game will return to the underwater city of Rapture or take players to a whole new location. 2K promises that it will be in development for the next several years, so don't hold your breath. And we've actually got a nice little interview with Kelley Gilmore coming up right after this. But it is going to be a while before we go back into the world of BioShock. But, I think Strauss Zelnick on an earnings call talked about BioShock being one of the cornerstone franchises for 2K. They're not moving away from this franchise, even though famously Ken Levine said, I want to get off of this merry-go-round, and he wanted to kind of turn his laser focus onto a new project, which we don't know anything about. BioShock is going to continue, and this is a big deal. I think it's amazing that they've got a studio in Montreal that's going to be working on this creative. I think Montreal studios, there's such a wealth of talent and history making narrative-driven video games out there. That's a great decision on the part of 2K, and it's exciting. This is the first time that they've got a female-led studio head, which is fantastic, or a female studio, or a studio led by a female, which is fantastic, and it's their first Canadian studio. So kudos to 2K, and we'll talk to Kelley all about that stuff in a little bit. Now, Warner Brothers and DC are going to say the magic word and bring back one of their superheroes. Over the weekend at the Sao Paulo Comic-Con, the studio officially announced that a sequel to Shazam is on the way. The film's cast and crew had already stated that they hoped to make a sequel, but this is the first public confirmation from the studio itself. Star Zachary Levi is set to return along with co-writer and director David F. Sandberg. As for villains, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has long been attached to a film adaptation of Shazam's arch-enemy, Black Adam, which is expected to begin filming next year, so don't be surprised if he appears in the Shazam sequel as well. And of course, I think the big sort of question mark right now is whether some of the other DC superheroes are going to make cameos in here, and whether this kind of new cinematic Justice League is going to start to emerge alongside Shazam. Clearly we have, if you've seen the first Shazam, there's a little bit of a spoiler here, but it's not just the main Shazam character. There's a lot of other superheroes already in the mix here, the whole family, which is going to be pretty phenomenal to see everybody in action. But of course, we also got a nice allusion to the fact that Superman exists in Shazam's world at the end of the first movie, which is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed watching it again. I watched it with my kid and her friend, and we all had a really good time diving back into that world again. It's very, even though it's violent, a little bit in the vein of the old Gremlins movies, which got kind of horrific in sequences. It's surprisingly like, oh my God, they're killing things and they're slicing and dicing, and then they go back to being super cute. Shazam is a little bit like that, which is fine. And I quite enjoyed it, and my kid really enjoyed it as well. I'm looking forward to this. I think Zach Levi was perfect casting, but I want to know, and Cavill is in the news right now. He's all over the place. He's doing his Witcher, press sit-downs everywhere, talking about how much he wants to be Superman and loves Superman. So I'm curious if Warner Brothers is working with him on messaging there, because we're being made to feel comfortable with the idea of Superman returning and squaring up against probably Black Adam first and then Shazam in the sequel here. But certainly DC and Warner Brothers have a lot of noise to make with their movie franchises and their superhero franchises. They just knocked it out of the park with the Wonder Woman 1984 trailer, which is absolutely sensational. That was my era, man. They're playing New Order in the as the musical backbone of that trailer, and it's fantastic. I love it. Love the aesthetics. I love how they allude to Steve Trevor being back. I loved Chris Pine in the first film. Very excited for this next, sort of bevy of DC movies, and I hope that all of them are rock solid. Still have some concerns about Birds of Prey, but we'll see, man. We might be all thumbs up on a lot of these things, which would be great. Now, next gen is right around the corner, but two of the best games from the last console generation are finally hitting this one. Two hits from Platinum Games, 2009's Bayonetta and 2010's Vanquish, are coming to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One for the first time in a new bundle called the Bayonetta and Vanquish 10th Anniversary Bundle. Both games have been remastered up to 4K and 60 frames per second. Oh my God, I got to see this. For the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X, although publisher Sega hasn't said if there will be any extra content in the games themselves. The bundle lands in February, and that's kind of like a birthday present to me. Of course, we just visited Platinum. We're going to have a really cool interview with the two of the main people from Platinum on EP very soon. Stay tuned for that. But these were two of the games that made me fall in love with the studio. And of course, Switch owners have been able to play Bayonetta 1 for a while now. And if you picked it up when you were supposed to pick it up a while ago, you've been playing it and enjoying it for years because it's one of the best action games ever made. But this is phenomenal. Vanquish is also one of those underappreciated gems. And these are both going to sing at 4K and 60 frames per second. Our eyes won't be able to believe what they're seeing. I can't wait for that. All right, now Minecraft fans on the PlayStation 4 can finally get together with their friends on other consoles. The long overdue Bedrock version of the game has just landed on the PS4, complete with cross-platform multiplayer support, allowing the console to join up with the Xbox One, Switch, PC, and mobile versions of the game. The Bedrock version first came to those platforms more than 2 years ago, making Minecraft one of the first big games to usher in the new era of cross-platform support, but Sony has long been a holdout against it. So far, they've only allowed crossplay on the PS4 and a handful of titles like Rocket League, Fortnite, and the new Modern Warfare, so Minecraft is joining a very short list. And this is exactly the kind of future we need to see in video games, right? We need to see that everybody getting along, people deciding whatever device they want to access this content with, and then being able to play with friends no matter what system that they own. I think it's so archaic to think that when you pick up a piece of software, you can only attach it to one piece of hardware. I mean, that just seems so old-fashioned at this stage. And I'm hoping that we get to a point where this is, I'm going to be reviewing Darksiders Genesis, which I've been playing on Stadia, but this is a perfect kind of, sort of transition point right here where, on Stadia, that particular game costs $10 more than it does on Steam, but it should be like if you just buy the game, you can play it wherever you want. You can download it on your Steam account or your Epic Store or whatever, or to a console. We're not quite there yet, but it's things like this that get us in that direction, which I'm excited about, and that's good news for Minecraft fans. They're going to be able to play with their friends no matter where they are. That's pretty damn rad. All right, the Golden Globes are proving that comic book movies are nothing to joke about. DC's supervillain movie Joker has received 4 Golden Globe nominations, including Best Drama, Best Actor in a Drama for Joaquin Phoenix, and Best Director for Todd Phillips. Joker did so well that there are only 3 movies with more nominations. Noah Baumbach's Marriage Story with 6, followed by Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Martin Scorsese's The Irishman with 5 apiece. Scorsese, incidentally, was attached to produce Joker before bowing out, and the final film borrows heavily from his past works like Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy. Although several comic book adaptations have been nominated for Golden Globes in the past, none have ever won before. Winners will be announced in January, and honestly, I think Joker's got a pretty good shot at taking home some of these things. It won like a 3-minute standing ovation when it premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, or was it Cannes or was it Venice? It was Cannes. Okay, so the critics went crazy for this thing when they got to see it for the first time at that film festival, and it's a lot of those same people voting on these awards because Golden Globes are the sort of the international press community. I think Joker's going to clean up. I mean, it's made a ton of money. It definitely has an artistic sensibility. Think what you want about the movie and its subject matter and its the way that it sort of deals with the subject of mental illness. It was created with a lot of craftsmanship and a tremendous amount of intelligence and emotion as well. And certainly Joaquin is incredible in the movie. I mean, even if you hate the movie and hate what they did with the character, you got to give it up for that guy. He did an amazing job in that role. And I think it also speaks to the fact that superhero movies are not a genre. They are an access point into several different types of genres. And we're going to start to see a lot more, risks and a lot more choice and a lot more dynamic ways into this type of material. Just like the comic book industry itself has served up stories with these characters for we're getting close to 100 years at this point. There's a lot of fantastic material to mine there, lots of great influence to turn into these new cinematic works, and they ain't going away. They're just going to get more varied and more interesting, and they're going to start to make even more money, I think, is what's going to happen as well. All right, you guys, that's our rundown for today. Now let's take a look back at this day and everything cool. Welcome to This Day and Everything Cool for December 9th. On this day in 1988, gamers could go to the store and take a cool new title off of the wall. The original Ninja Gaiden was released on the NES or Famicom in Japan, with a Western release following a few months later. The game thrust players into the role of badass ninja Ryu Hayabusa, who slices and dices his way through loads of enemies on a quest for revenge. Visually, Ninja Gaiden has a lot in common with other side-scrollers and beat-em-up games of the era, but the thing that sets it apart is its freedom of movement. Game director Hideo Yoshizawa was inspired by the jumping mechanics in the Mario franchise and wanted to expand on them, giving players the ability to jump higher and also bounce off of walls and other objects. Ninja Gaiden felt much more acrobatic than most other games, which helped make it a massive hit. A sequel, Ninja Gaiden 2, followed in 1990, and in 2004, the franchise was given a 3D reboot on the original Xbox. All right, you guys, we moved quickly and we were able to catch up with Kelley Gilmore from Cloud Chamber to talk about her new role overseeing BioShock. Let's take a look. Joining me right now is Kelley Gilmore. She is the global studio head of Cloud Chamber. How are you, Kelley? Big day for you guys.
Hey, Vic. Hi, I'm great. Yeah, we're really excited to finally be able to announce what we're doing and announce our new studio. So thanks for having us on.
This is great. You've shifted over from long-time work with Firaxis, and now you're working on a beloved gaming franchise. You've learned, you've been in the business for how many years now?
Well, gosh, I started in 97, so what is that, 22 years? Yep. I'm not great at math, but I think so.
It's around the time when I started as well. So you've learned how to make games in every kind of size, I would imagine, but does BioShock come with its own new challenges, the expectations that everybody has on a franchise like this?
Well, look, it does not fall lightly on any of us. The brevity of what we're about to do with BioShock. And we know that there's a fan base out there that is very excited about the franchise, and we are looking forward to delivering beyond their expectations. We're going to be in development over the next several years on this game, and I'm sure that fans out there will have lots of words of wisdom for us, and we always love hearing from everybody, so we'll be looking out to see what expectations are as we're pulling this vision together for the next game.
That's awesome. Now, you're based in Novato, California, sort of in the 2K cluster of development studios there, I would imagine?
Yeah, that's right. We're in Novato and Hamilton Landing, these really cool Air Force hangars.
Yeah, it's awesome down there. And you've got a new studio, and I think this is the most exciting part of this announcement. You've got your first Canadian studio in Montreal. And so I'm wondering how you're going to do that. Are you going to be flying back and forth, or are you going to use the wonders of internet communication to stay in touch with everybody? What are you going to be doing with that?
Yeah, we'll be doing all of that. I mean, we're really excited to be able to open a studio in Montreal, and it's really important to us for the Cloud Chamber group to feel like one team with two locations. So we'll have leadership in both studios. We'll be working on core gameplay in both studios. And yeah, I mean, we'll use the wonders of technology to be able to have FaceTime with each other on a daily basis. And we'll be flying back and forth quite a bit. I've really fallen in love with Montreal. I'd only visited there once before prior to starting this studio, so I've been there now a few times, and I love it. And you know, the Montreal community has really embraced us, and it just has Montreal has an amazing vibe to it. It's I think there's the people I've met from various companies around the city, they all are really invested in Montreal. And the community that they're building there and the way they engage with people. And it feels like a great fit for our studio. So we're excited to be there. And we'll have this office here in Novato as well. And together we're going to make something great.
Awesome. Have you got a roster or a team together that has worked on BioShock games in the past that is also going to be working on this new one that you're developing?
We do, actually. Even our team is very small right now, and we are growing, but I can tell you that our leadership team has some pretty serious BioShock veterans on it.
Right.
One of them is our creative director, Hogarth Delaplante. He worked on BioShock. He has worked on BioShock in the past. We have Scott Sinclair, who's our art director, has worked on BioShock, and then Jonathan Pelling, who's our design director, is also been part of the BioShock franchise from the beginning. So we feel like that infuses us with some pretty serious BioShock DNA, and we'll build out the rest of the team with some folks who've had experience with BioShock, but we also have a lot of veterans from some of the industry's great franchises like Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed and Walking Dead and Star Wars. So we feel like we have a pretty solid team of people who've shipped a lot of games over the years, and they're all really excited about being able to work on this franchise.
That's awesome. What is going to be, kind of unique to developing this game for these new consoles and our expectations of, visuals in 4K at 60 frames per second? Is this going to be maybe the largest game that you've ever been personally involved with, do you think?
Well,
in terms of team size?
Yes. In terms of the team size, this is going to be a larger team for sure. And well that it takes a huge effort and a lot of people to put these AAA games out to the marketplace now. And certainly with the way the technology is constantly evolving in the industry, it's a lot to keep up with. We're super excited about it. We have our eyes on what's happening all the time, and all of that will inform how we move forward on the design of this game.
That is awesome. What is the significance of Cloud Chamber?
Okay, so I'm going to get sciencey on you for a minute, and this is way out of my wheelhouse. However, so coming up with the name for our studio was really a collaborative effort with the folks who are kind of the first members of the group. And we had lots of ideas, as you can imagine. I mean, naming this was a big challenge, but someone had brought to our attention this scientific contraption called a cloud chamber, which I'm sure many of your listeners are very familiar with, but it was new to me. And a cloud chamber is this device that brings particles into it from the atmosphere, and they're particles that are invisible to the naked eye out there in the atmosphere. But when they come into this device, they mix with water and alcohol, and then suddenly you can see them in these really kind of unique and beautiful ways. So it inspired us to start thinking about the creative ideas in our minds as these things that no one can see until we come together and collaborate within our studio, and then suddenly these ideas can come to life on the screen for everybody to see. And so we were like, wow, we're like human cloud chambers. This is really cool. And it kind of became something that felt right for the studio. And then I don't know if you've seen our logo. It's actually here. I'm going to stand up for a minute.
Sure.
There's our logo.
Oh, that's cool.
So that once we put the logo together, I don't know, I just was like, this is really cool. And it just felt right for the way our studio works together, and the enthusiasm and the great ideas that come from this diverse group just kind of collaborating on a day-to-day basis. So that's it.
And I guess it kind of speaks to the intangible quality of working around the world, because that's the way games get made these days too, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're certainly not the first studio to have locations all over the world, and that is how it's made, and it's pretty exciting.
That's awesome. I know that a lot of BioShock diehards and fans out there are going to be curious if Ken Levine is going to be consulting or a part of this process at all. Are you guys in contact with him?
Everybody knows Ken is now working at his new studio, Ghost Story Games, and from what I understand, they are immersed in developing some amazing new thing that I'm sure we'll all be enjoying soon. He's not involved in the development of this BioShock. This is just all Cloud Chamber, but he's he's in the Take-Two family, and we're excited to be able to show him what we're doing as we go.
That is fantastic. Any final thoughts on why BioShock is as influential and important an IP in the video game space as it is?
Well, I would say that BioShock kind of defined what a compelling story and an immersive world can do for a video game experience. And that's kind of those have been part of the cornerstone of what's made the BioShock franchise great. So certainly that's something that will be part of the vision that we have for this next game as we move forward.
Fantastic. So when are we anticipating we're going to start to hear more, and when do you think we may be able to play this new BioShock game?
Gosh, I wish I could give you a definite answer, but we're in really early stages of development, and we're still trying to bring this vision together, and so we're not ready yet to announce specifics on when we'll be talking about the game in more details or when we're actually looking to launch. We're just, fortunately 2K has given us some space to kind of figure out creatively what this game will be, and then we'll take it from there. So there'll be more news to come.
Awesome. I know people are going to be asking me, so I had to ask you, Kelley.
Yes, I appreciate it.
Do you? Does that mean, though, that you guys are hiring at Cloud Chamber, and should people be getting in touch with your HR teams?
Yes, we are. We're hiring. We are going to be hiring quite a number of people, both in the Novato studio and in Montreal. And our job listings, our open jobs, are all on our new website that launched today, which is www.cloudchamberstudios.com.
I love it. Kelley, thank you so much for coming to us early and letting us talk about this. Congratulations to you and all of the team members in California and in Montreal. I can't wait to come and visit the studios and see what you guys are working on. It's going to be amazing.
Oh, thank you so much, Vic. It was great talking with you, and we're excited to continue the conversation as we have more to share. And I appreciate your enthusiasm. So awesome. Thanks. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care. Congratulations.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, you guys, I've got my first full review using this controller. I played a game on Stadia that I've got to talk about here right now. It's Darksiders Genesis, and I'm a big fan of the Darksiders franchise. I played 1, 2, and 3 and have enjoyed them. I think 2 is my favorite, but 3 is fun and 1 was great. They've always borrowed from other types of genres out there, like Zelda or God of War and Dark Souls a little bit. But this is a totally different take on Darksiders. This is a top-down hack and slash action RPG that has Darksiders combat mechanics as well as climbing and clambering mechanics and jumping mechanics. We get to play as Strife and War, and you can play the game cooperatively if you want, which I didn't test out. I wish I did. There aren't that many people playing co-op online things on Stadia, and I don't have a friends list readily available on Stadia. I'm sure you guys are curious how the play was on Stadia and if I noticed any lag or any issues. Didn't at all. This is a solid type of game to play like this. It's not a pixel precise, perfect, first-person shooter by any means. it's forgiving. But I didn't have any problems running this at all at home, and we recorded a little bit of footage here today, and I was playing some today. No problems at all. But the game is very fun. What they've done is basically taken the camera that would be a chase cam or a camera that gives you that you have control of in a third-person kind of state, and they've sort of repoed it up above the characters. And it looks a little bit like a Diablo type of experience, and you would be totally cool with thinking that this is that kind of game style. But it isn't. You have all of the same twitchy kind of mechanics that you're familiar with. So you'll jump onto posts and swivel around them and jump to the next one. It's just that you're looking at it from a different perspective. I have an issue with the fact that I can't control the camera. I can't spin the camera around. And there are moments in this game where you are stuck behind foreground elements and you can't really tell what's going on. And because this is still, an exploration game where you're really trying to, just like the other Darksiders games, where you're really trying to traverse the entirety of the environment and find all of the secrets and climb everywhere, sometimes the lack of being able to move the camera around really pissed me off, because I was like, I see the chest right there. I need that chest. It's on my map. I got to get to that, but I can't figure out where to go and I can't move the camera. But it's worth it finding all of those chests and all of those power-ups. There's lots of great abilities that you will unlock. You talk to Volgrim, that sort of shopkeeper that's been throughout all of these things. There are other shopkeepers as well that you will meet. And this is all about fighting Lucifer and hordes of demons and some great boss fights and great boss encounters. And it's all broken up chapter by chapter. And what happens in this game is you will unlock abilities and you'll gain the power to defeat enemies of varying sizes much easier, and you'll also be able to go back into chapters that you've already completed. You might have gotten that first objective or completed the main mission, but there's lots of side quests and things like that. So you'll want to go back and you'll want to collect everything so that you can gain new powers and new abilities. And in the case of Strife, who is a sort of a range character, he can do lots of up-close and personal attacks if you want with a melee weapon, but he's got two guns that have different types of ammunition, and you control them, Smash TV style, dual stick style, which I love. So you can, run in one direction and shoot in the other. Those weapons are really fun. And this is the first time we've been able to play as Strife, so I was really digging playing as this character. The other character is War, who is an all-out melee fighter, but he also has that Vorpal blade, that sort of, the glaive from Krull, that kind of thing. Like 4 people know what I'm talking about there. That sort of spinny razor tooth thing where you can use it to activate switches and stuff, but it will also do a little bit of damage. You do a lot more damage by just getting right into the conflict, and you have special attacks and special abilities and combo attacks, and you're constantly using the souls that you collect to purchase more powerful attacks. And then you'll also find little secrets and things like that will make you even more kick-ass and badass. And you've got a whole, a power meter, which is important, which can be tuned also with this other thing that's introduced, these, what are they called? The creature, I forget the name of it. It's like a creature menu, creature console or something like that. I forget the name. I have no script here, people. I'm just rambling. But you take these different creatures and you stick them on this this power-up board, and it makes both sides, Strife and War, a little bit more powerful. And you've got that power ranking at the bottom of the screen. So you complete chapters and you tell the story and you go through, and they've got all these different types of comic book style cut sequences, which are nice. Great voice acting, which Darksiders is famous for. All of that is back in there. Great music. It's epic, even though it's mini and the camera's looking down at it's still epic and fun and twitchy and addictive. But then, in addition to all of the chapters, you also have these arena modes where you have to battle 10 waves of increasingly more difficult enemies, and it will tell you if you've got enough power to defeat all of those waves right at the start. Those are addictive as well, and you earn lots of, moolah that you're going to be able to spend on upgrades. So it's this nice loop. It's well crafted. I was hooked. I dug this game. It's not so innovative that I've never played an experience like this. I like that it has a connection to previous Darksiders, game styles and the flow of previous Darksiders games. I like that it's different as well. I like that almost every single one of these Darksiders games feels a little bit different from the other one. I think that's rad. And I do hope that Darksiders as a franchise continues and we get that inevitable and eventual all four horsemen riding together and taking care of things. A 4-player co-op, the hack and slash combat experience would be unbelievable. It's a bit surprising that this game doesn't deliver that, especially with its top-down perspective. But I can't fault it too much. I think it's pretty damn fun. It's ridiculous that it's more expensive to buy this on Stadia than it is on the Steam shops, or I think it's on GOG as well. It should be the same price everywhere, and it should also not be a very expensive purchase. It feels a little smaller. It doesn't feel any less mighty or fun, but it does feel smaller than the previous larger scale third-person action-adventure Darksiders games. But it's a worthy addition to the franchise, and color me surprised and pleased. I like this game a lot. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. All right, you guys, we have an incredible interview for you right now. I got to meet the creator of Samurai Shodown. Let's take a look. One of my favorite games of all time is Samurai Shodown, and I'm here with the father of Samurai Shodown, Adachi-san. And first of all, thank you for creating this seminal fighting experience, which really blew my mind. I was a big fighting game fan, like all of us that were into video games back then, but the weapon combat and the characters that you created were so cool and so addictive. And people don't always know this, but Samurai Shodown was the first video game that was sent to the Electric Playground. It was a 3DO port, but it legitimized EP as a brand, and it was also an incredible game that I played with my colleagues, and it completely took us over. It was so addictive. So thank you very much.
3DO based on reality.
And it was Crystal Dynamics was the publisher before they were bought by Eidos. It was a very interesting time. Tell me about working at SNK in the 90s and creating games like Samurai Shodown. What was special about SNK?
That was about 30 years ago, so you're going to have to give me a second or two to recall what was so special in the 90s. For me, I'm starting to remember. That was when I would get into a lot of fights with my wife 30 years ago. Yes, that was it. All jokes aside, I remember going to the company, didn't feel like I was going to work. Felt like I was going to play or have fun, or, I couldn't believe I was doing this as a job. Family life was sometimes difficult, and so it was nice to go to work because I was able to play all these games and do this fun job, and it was actually a good amount of escapism for me.
There were already a bunch of great fighting games under the SNK banner. Samurai Shodown distinguished itself with its weapon-based combat. I'm wondering if there was a little bit of a rivalry between the fighting game teams. Were you trying to one-up each other and not just be more popular, but just be a better game or a more fun game?
Actually, at that time, there were 4 different lines of different fighting games that we were making at SNK. So one was Fatal Fury, there was Art of Fighting, Samurai Shodown, and of course, King of Fighters. And while we were all making fighting games, and you'd think that there was a rivalry, and actually we get asked that question quite a bit, did we feel like we wanted to one-up the competition, so to speak, internally? It never really felt that way. At one point, King of Fighters and Samurai Spirits were developed in the same room. So we could look over and see their screens, and they could look over and see our screens, and we'd look over and be like, that's a really dark-looking game, using really dark colors. And then they'd look over and look at all the different blood. There's a lot of red colors in that game. And you'd think that you would feel there would be like some sort of rivalry or you'd have to one-up the competition, but we didn't. I was so proud of the stuff that they were doing, and they were proud of the stuff that we were doing, and just in general as a team, we didn't really feel any competition. We just felt really excited to see what the other teams were working on. And so that was kind of a core motivation for us back at the time, as we were just kind of one big happy family making all these cool games together. one good example of the teams would be as if we were all running a marathon together. You know, you don't look at somebody next to you in a marathon and hope that they fall out or something. You all want to move together with the same momentum in the same direction. And actually, if you're going to take it a step further, we would look at companies like Capcom, Sega, Konami, Taito, etc., and the games that they would put out. And we didn't even feel a rivalry towards that or a competition towards them. We're all together in the game industry running this massive marathon together, and we would see the games that they would put out, and that would motivate us. And, you know, we'd come back and then take that motivation, that fire, that passion, and put it back into the game development to the point where it really was just you would motivate somebody else, they would motivate you. It was all one big positive energy that was all just used to making the best games you possibly could.
How big of a team was the original Samurai Spirits team?
Yeah, so we started with a team size of about 20 in the beginning. And then, you know, as we made more and more Samurai Shodown games, eventually the largest size of team was about 50 people.
How did you guys know you were onto something? Did you create two characters and had them go back and forth? Take us into the early development and trying to figure this out, because one of the amazing things about the game is that there hadn't really been a lot of weapon-based fighting games, especially in the arcades. Why was that? And then how did you know that it was working?
So, back in the day, all that 30 years ago, my image of myself was that I was a god. I could create anything. I was the best creator on the planet. I was totally drinking my own Kool-Aid. Now I know I am a mere mortal. I am made of flesh and bone. However, back then, I thought I was a god. And during that time, whenever I would have a game design, I would imagine it in my head. And usually the way I would imagine it, we were able to create it. So being able to have this vivid imagination and then build out according to that blueprint in my head was a skill that I had. And in my mind, when I was envisioning the gameplay, it seemed very clear to me. And of course, we did do a mini prototype where it's one character versus one character. And sure enough, that ended up being very fun. As far as the weapon combat choice goes, probably two big reasons. The first one is I wanted to emphasize what is the fear of combat. And of course, it's scary when somebody may punch you. It's even scarier if you're going to be stabbed. So the weapons take the intensity of the fighting game up in a major way. It's the fear of needing to attack, but also needing to defend yourself because the stakes are higher. So being able to do that with the game seemed like the weapon component needed to be an essential part of it. The second part of that is I've always been a huge fan of the traditional Japanese culture. So samurais and ninjas and things like that. So being able to make a game where that history or that culture could also be a part of it appealed to me as a creator.
Let's talk a little bit about the characters. What were some of the first characters that came together? And you created such indelible characters like Nakoruru and people that we've seen and loved for decades now. Did you have an inkling? Did you know that that was going to happen?
So
I'm going to slightly rewind the discussion back to, of course, when I was still a god planning these games out. And believe it or not, Samurai Shodown was initially meant to be a side-scrolling game. It wasn't planned to initially be a fighting game. And it was, you were a samurai and a ninja, and you're scrolling along, and there's a wide variety of different monsters, really, you know, big, burly, gross monsters, things like zombies and Frankenstein monsters, and they come on the screen and you fight them. And to that end, since that was the beginning point of the production, Gan, who's the round green guy, of course, in the game, he was one of the monsters that you would fight. So he was probably the first character design that ever got created. But if you're going to, you know, say who's the first character design that we created based on it being a fighting game, That, of course, would be the classic characters, Haomaru, who is based on a Japanese, very famous historical figure named Miyamoto Musashi. He's your typical samurai that most Japanese people would consider the real hardcore Japanese samurai. And then, of course, his rival, Tachibana Ukyo, in the game also, which is based on another famous Japanese historical figure, Kojiro Sasaki.
And when you were designing the characters, was it your artist doing all kinds of renderings on paper and sort of defining every style that you needed, and there were a lot of iterations, and then you'd have to take it into pixel art and try to find your way to that happy medium? Or did it come together pretty quickly?
We had a character concept artist on paper drawing out the characters in different poses, and then we had a pixel artist that would take those images and put them into pixel art. They wouldn't always fit perfectly, so there would be multiple back and forths to try and find what was the happy medium between the two different sort of art styles. Going to give you just one specific back channel discussion that you probably may not have heard before, and that is every character was created through that process except for one. And that one is Earthquake. And because Earthquake was supposed to be so large and massive and have all this power, we created him in-game. And then I said, no. You know, he's at the time, Haomaru is about double Haruma's size. And he's like, no, it needs to be bigger. So I made him bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where he wasn't fitting on the screen anymore. And then, of course, we had to dial it down a bit from there. But the point was making him as large as the screen could possibly hold a character meant that you weren't designing him on paper, meant that you were designing within the size of the monitor.
You're one of a very few developers on Earth. There aren't that many developers on Earth that can recall their work being played for the first time in the arcade. And going to the arcade and watching people figure out their game and play their game and be excited and have a big smile on their face and learn from that. Talk to me about that. What was that like to be able to go and see players consume your game and figure it out and see their enthusiasm?
We call that a location test. So basically, before the actual final version is released, you put it out in some arcades and you test it to see how people are playing and interacting with it, etc., before you go into mass production. Most of my memories of location tests were painful. Obviously, with Samurai Shodown, it's great because it became a very popular game and you're happy when you have a hit on your hands. But the games I did before that weren't super popular, and I distinctly remember at one of the location tests, my game being right next to a Gradius machine, and that game had come out several years before that. Many of the high schoolers had come, they had put their backpacks on top of my game, totally blocking the monitor from view, and gone over and played Gradius. That, of course, ended up motivating me later that I had to work harder, so it led to a good result, but just seeing that, working very hard on something and having somebody use it as basically a bag holder to play a 3-year-old game was pretty painful.
SNK was and it remains such a cool company that has been able to cross over and do home, even though they were very expensive cartridges back in the day and consoles, but arcade machines that you could have multiple games on. Was that a special place? And was it received, did other studios know how unique SNK was? Because it felt like a company kind of ready to adapt to whatever transitions the video game industry was going to throw at it.
Back then, SNK was an amazing place to work because just about any pitch or game that you made to the company, they approved. Doesn't matter how crazy or original or wacky it was. So you got to make a wide variety of different really interesting games that probably other companies would not have approved. So, I think probably the reason I am the way I am today is because they had so much flexibility and really allowed me to feel out what it was to do to make a wide variety of different games. They really allowed me to be creative back in the day.
すごく伸び伸びした人格に育ててもらったっていう 感じです。
How many Samurai Shodown games did you work on? How long did you stay with the franchise?
入場ポケット2つ。僕の
If my recollect is correct, because Vic, you're asking stuff from a long, long time ago. Probably you're looking at about 8 titles that I originally worked on. But if you're going to talk about adding in other ported versions that other companies created and I oversaw the quality, etc., did checks on, probably at about 10. And I worked on them largely between when I was 26 and 32. Or 33, so about 6 or 7 years was dedicated to Samurai Shodown brand. And then even after I left SNK at other companies, I would present them, pitch them on doing like a PC version that we worked on. And so if you include that into my years of working on Samurai Shodown, we're probably at about 10 or so.
プラス期間でいうとそうですね。10年ぐらいサムライスピリッツにかかっていたと思います。
Do you have a favorite of the Samurai Shodown games? Do you have one that feels like the perfect distillation of everything you dreamed when you were a god?
やっぱりサムライスピリッツ
If I have to choose one of the different Shodown titles I worked on, as far as fun goes, I would say it's probably the original. Because even back then, you know, it was a very well put together game. It had depth. The combat was great. So to be able to work on them was just a lot of fun. But I guess if I'm going to choose my personal favorite, just as far as the one that feels the most complete, balanced, etc., I'm going to have to go with Samurai Shodown 3. And just as an aside, because I keep calling myself a god, I wanted to be very clear to the viewing public that I in fact was not a god. I thought I was, but I turned out to just be a delusional fool. That's what I was in reality. And I just want to state that for the record, in case anybody on the team sees this and says, what is he saying? So I want for the record to state that yes, I know I was not a god.
What does it feel like? Because we're about to get a new collection of your original work in 2020, 25 to 30 years later. How does it feel that we still love Samurai Shodown? It's still one of my favorite games. How does it feel to know that people all over the world love the work of you and your peers when you were all in your 20s?
I guess one of the most important things that I think about knowing how long the game has continued, it's been a title where so many different types of people have worked on it. You know, eventually new people came in, old people left. It's been continually created by new teams and has continued to march forward as a very interesting IP. And so that's a great feeling, but probably the best feeling is that even today, you know, the different people that worked on it, the sales people, QA team, core developers, we still go out and we drink and we hang out and we're friends. And so what that title did, and I think it's fairly rare in the game industry, is it's been the connective tissue between a great number of very talented creators. Of course, it's nice to have people run up to me and say, oh, I love that game, and compliment me. And of course, you know, even my child loves it, and that's a great thing to hear as a parent. But it's the fact that this created a family, and it's an ongoing family, and it's a tightly knit family. And all that came from the development of this title. And so that's the thing I'm probably most proud of, is that legacy of friendship between all the different people that worked on the title.
We got a 3D Samurai Shodown this year, which was really fun. Did you have a chance to play it? And what were your thoughts on the 3D Samurai Shodown?
まず最初に見たときに開発の
Yeah, of course I played the game. I remember seeing the first trailer for it, and Hamaru comes out and slashes the screen with the sword. And when I saw that, I felt that Oda-san, who is overseeing the development, he got it. He understood the soul of what makes Samurai Shodown great. And I really respected the fact that trying to take 2D, the memory of 2D, the feeling of 2D, and convert it into 3D and still get the lifelikeness to it and still be able to have that same base core feeling is incredibly challenging thing to do, going from pixels to straight up 3D character models. He did an incredible job. And not only that, you know, it's really easy to pick up and play. It's not bogged down with overly complicated systems and things like that. So a man like myself in my 50s can pick it up and still play it and understand how to play it, and that's always nice. Oda-san, maybe he feels something different, I don't know, but when I play the game, It very much reminds me of the roots, the core feeling of playing the original Samurai Shodown. And so being able to achieve that, with how different of visual style it has is very impressive.
遊んだ時の印象、自分が作ったサムライスピリッツ1と今回のサムライスピリッツと非常にこう近いイメージを持てたので、僕自身はすごく今回のサムライスピリッツをポジティブに受け取りました。
One of my favorite themes in fighting games is when we have the versus, the Capcom versus Marvel and the Capcom versus SNK. I would love, and I'm wondering if this ever was talked about or discussed, a Soul Calibur versus Samurai Spirits or Samurai Shodown. I think to make a 2D game and a 3D game would be incredible. Was that idea ever proposed? Did you ever talk about that?
僕はすごく
As far as that collaboration goes, there were, 30 years ago, two teams that I really were dying to meet. One was the Marble Madness team, and the other was the Mortal Kombat team. Because I just loved the way that they did the violent expression, and the animation and stuff like that. And so, in my mind, of course, this was just in my mind. This was not shared with anybody else. It would have been really cool to do a Samurai Shodown versus Mortal Kombat. That would have been a very interesting collaboration back in the day, way back in the day, 30 years ago.
As the father of Samurai Shodown, and I would imagine this could be true for many creators out there, there's an idea of putting yourself into the work. And I'm wondering if any of the characters in Samurai Shodown are a reflection of you or a representation of you. And if so, who are they?
It's
not visual, but my personality, I'm a pretty dark and negative guy. And, there's lots of games, lots of colorful, bright, happy characters. That's not me. And so, probably if you look at, like, Ukyo, or if you look at Gaon, or in Samurai Shodown 3, Basara the Executioner, like, all of those characters got some pretty dark sides to them, and I would say that's a symbolic of my personality.
Is there anything you want to say to the Samurai Shodown fans, the people that have stuck with this franchise for the entire time?
So, first and foremost, thank you. Big, heartfelt thank you. I was a 26-year-old kid when I did that. Fast forward to today, I can go to Hokkaido, I can go to Okinawa, two opposite sides of Japan. I can go abroad. People run up to me and say, you're the guy that created Samurai Shodown. And, that's legacy. That's something that could only have happened with passionate fans. And say what you will about the creators that make the games, it's the fans that empower the creators. Without the fans, IP will not continue. And we've had such a passionate fan base. They've been so great that they have kept the passion alive. And it's my dream that they keep it moving forward. And that they come back and they say, SNK, more Samurai Shodown games. This is an amazing IP. We want more of that. And they just let that voice and that passion be felt across the company. If I get to be at an age where that passion continues forward and more Samurai Shodown games are created, I know I'll die a happy man.
It's really very, very special for me to meet you. I feel like that game that you made that long ago, I can feel that direct line to it, and it's this is a big day, and I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Arigato.
Hey, listen, that was a personal thrill for me to meet Adachi-san and to talk about Samurai Shodown. If you couldn't tell on my face, I was completely in love with the guy. He was awesome, and a wonderful interview, and so warm and welcoming. Everybody at SNK HQ in Osaka was just terrific. It really felt like we kind of came home there. They totally understood what I wanted to do was honor this game and this franchise that's been so important to me, and it's a great thrill that I get to meet all of these people, and what I'm trying to do now with EP is And I think I was really influenced and inspired by talking with Tom Kalinske from Sega and Ed Annunziata from Sega and people like Mike Micah, people that have been doing this for a long time, and I feel deserve a little bit more time in front of the camera, a little bit more time to kind of communicate with us, you know? So that was a huge thrill, and it was a dream come true, and it wouldn't have come true if it weren't for Ben Judd, who has worked as a translator and as a partner and as a producer, and now he's an agent working in Japan, and he's unbelievably, we've had him on EP talking about different games over the years, and I've known him for a long time. And he's a wonderful guy, man, and he was a great host to Blake and I when we were there, and he did all the translation on that interview, and it wouldn't have come together without him. So thank you, Ben Judd, and thank you, SNK, and thank you, Adachi-san, for your incredible games. Okay, you guys, we have one more review for you today. It is a review of the latest episode of Watchmen. If you've been following along with my Watchmen HBO reviews, you know that almost every week and after every episode I say that my mind was blown. Well, last night, episode 8 of Watchmen completely destroyed my brain. It was absolutely ridiculous.
This is the moment.
We get a really deep dive into the secrets and the reasons why everything is as weird as it has seemed since the beginning of this season. So a lot of the mysteries are uncovered, and I'm not going to spoil all of that stuff in there, but we do see direct connections to the Alan Moore, Dave Gibbons comic series, and this is clearly a carryover of a lot of themes and concepts and ideas. We finally understood why the main villain of Aquaman, Yahya Abdul-Mateen, has been kind of hiding in the background for the entirety of this season so far. He's not hiding in the background anymore after this most recent episode. We also get a real understanding why Regina King's character, Angela Abar, and Cal, Yahya Abdul-Mateen's character, are so tight-knit and such a great team with the children that they're raising. We get their whole backstory in this episode as well. We also get a really good understanding of what the hell Jeremy Irons has been up to in his old English mansion, surrounded by all kinds of clones. Wonderful storytelling that really plays with some interesting flashback material. Time is an interesting component in this episode, actually. We're sort of jumping forward and backward and different realities all the time with the content in this show. And it's so hard not to talk about very specific details as I'm reviewing it.
I don't experience the concept of before.
This is one of the strongest episodes of the season. It is rife with reveals, and they don't let you down, but you can't watch it out of sync. You have to watch it as this chronological masterpiece that this season has become. The storytelling is wonderful. The effects are fantastic. The performances are great. The music is as cool as it has been. It really shows that Damon Lindelof and his whole production team are at the top of their game. They took this very seriously, this responsibility of honoring this incredible comic franchise with unbelievable clarity and wonderful fidelity and just a real sense of love, you know, a real sense of compassion for the source material and an elegance in their refinement of how they put all of this stuff together. It has been incredibly complex and complicated and uncomfortable, but that is what you could say of the classic comic as well.
I'm in love.
I'm loving this show, and if you haven't started to watch HBO's Watchmen, you are missing out in a big way. I'm giving this episode a 9.5 out of 10, and you've got to watch this show. So yes, if you haven't started to watch The Watchmen, you definitely have to do that. Guys, we've only got a few minutes left, so we're not going to bother hooking up all kinds of game systems here to do some Let's Play and chat. But if you've got any comments or questions or any thoughts on what we've put together for your viewing pleasure today, let me know, and I'll read some out. But in the meantime, JBJ Blaze and TFA, good to see you. You got to check out the show there, buddy. Loving The Watchmen, geek hero of comics and consoles, saying that loves Watchmen, which is great. Abby Jameson's loving the interviews with the gaming legends. So am I. It's a total treat that I get to do that. It's fantastic. That was a great segment. Tim Alexander says, Sam I Am 111 enjoyed the SNK, the Samurai Shodown bit there. That was a treat for me, man. Let's see, what else do we hear? Blake Siefkin has a comment, says, agreed, whoever shot and edited this piece is extremely talented and sexy. Yes, he is. Round of applause for Mr. Blake Siefkin. Fong Tran gave us a thumbs up for something. I don't know what it's for. A Samurai Shodown hack and slash could work from Chris Dugan. More Samurai Shodown in any capacity could work. What I loved in the early Samurai Shodown games is that even casuals can go toe-to-toe with pros because of the game mechanics. Yes, it's incredibly forgiving, and there's so much visual stimulation, you feel like a badass when you're playing it. Just kind of like the God that Adachi-san kept alluding to. That's how you feel when you're playing it. That's what he felt like when he was making it. That's how you feel like when you're playing it. Good comment, Ryoga316. Sonny Chiba, my favorite Japanese actor, also Ryuga. Old Man said, Vic gets a lot of good interviews. It shows years of being in the gaming industry paying off. Thank you very much. Oh, it wasn't. Who was it? Toshiro Akune? Mifune. Toshiro Mifune was the actor in there. That's your favorite Japanese actor, right? Okay, I can't remember all those names. Looks backs at my gaming childhood are always great, VR Grid says. I keep hitting enter too soon, JBJ Blaze says. Subnautica is amazing. Watchmen is losing viewers because of the propaganda it's pushing. Taco Smuggler is back in the house there. Let's see what we got here. Listen, this is a perfect time to remind you guys that the Rocket and Ray Gun Awards are coming up next week. We have started to shoot a little bit of content, and we've done some reaching out to different people to contribute. We're going to have a nice collection of video clips and pieces from lots of smiling, happy faces all over the world that will be a part of our material, and we want you to be a part of our material. You can find out all of the categories and some of the nominees and some of the processes for getting us the videos that we need. Basically, you got to shoot it on a camera that you look and you sound okay on, and then post it as a clip to YouTube or a bunch of clips to YouTube or Dropbox or Google Drive or something like that, and then send us a link. And you can private message us on Facebook, or you can send us a link on Twitter, or on the community page on our YouTube channel as well. We'd love to see that. We'd love to see your vids. That would be fantastic. Thank you for the super chat. Johnny Dark. Will Metro Exodus get a nomination for this Rocket and Ray Gun Award? Who knows? We'll know soon. Okay, so deadline for getting us your vids is this Friday at noon so that Blake can start cutting all of that stuff together. The Rocket and Ray Gun start on Monday next week, the 16th. We're going to have a review of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker next week. We've got a brand new EP live for you on Wednesday and Friday, and we've got some interviews that are already shot and edited, and some more good stuff coming up your way very soon. Okay? So please come back. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for all of your support, and make sure that until we see you again, you will play forever.